My name is Brianna Claypool, and I am a junior at Caregrove High School. It's been exactly 7 days since last time we saw you, so it is time for Impact. If you are live with us right now, make sure to comment something, say hi, so we can say hi back and see how you're doing. While you're doing that, I'm going to get on with the rest of the announcements. First off, if you don't follow our Instagram already, make sure to do that. It is WCL_impact. And make sure you hit the little subscribe button down below and the bell next to it so you get notified every time we post a new video. You don't want to miss out on Tuesday night McMillan with Mike, Thursday night game shows with Josh, or Friday night adulting with Hannah. If you want to be a part of the host team, all you have to do is email Hannah, and our address is right down below. If you are new with us this week, you can also email any of the addresses down below. We would love to get in contact with you. We're about to head into our third week of what to do when you don't know what to do. So let's go ahead and jump into worship to kickstart the service.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom of my life. Oh, he is my song, 'cause you are good. You're good. Oh, 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 and let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song, 'cause you are good. You're good. Gonna let me down. You're never 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 gonna let me down. how high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? And oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you graced the other side. And oh, how long have I chased rivers from lowly seas to where they rise, against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. And I would search and stop at nothing, but you're just not that hard to find. I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Oh, how far beneath your glory does your kindness extend your path, from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinner's path. And oh, how fast would you come running if just to shadow me through the night, and chase my steps through all my failure, and walk me out the other side. For who could dare ascend that mountain, that valleyed hill called Calvary, but for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. The highlands and the heartache all the same. Wherever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains. Wherever I stand, and if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows, my song will stand. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains. Wherever I stand, so if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows, my song of ascent, my song of ascent. From the bravest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace. empty grave. I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same.
Hey Impact, it's Josh. Hey, real quick, did you ever notice that when you were little, it was actually pretty easy to know the difference between right and wrong? Yeah, I know. Yeah, for me, it was usually, honestly, just as simple as trying to decide whether or not I should punch my brother. Yeah, I mean, if I punched my brother, I'd probably get in trouble because punching my brother was wrong. Even though certainly there were times that I wished it wasn't wrong. And there were times that even though I knew it was wrong, I did it anyway. But regardless, it was still wrong. Right? But the older you get, you start realizing that knowing the difference between right and wrong isn't actually as easy as it used to be when you were little. Here's an example. So say you're driving along just like you're supposed to, obeying every law, and your hands are even at 10-2, and you pass a police officer that's obviously using a radar gun to check everybody's speed. So do you then use that handy feature on your favorite navigation app to warn other drivers? Or maybe do you flash your lights to warn people that they should slow down? Is it wrong to warn people who are doing something illegal, like speeding, so that they won't get caught? Or maybe, hey, what about if you find a wallet on the sidewalk and you pick it up, and inside it are two $20 bills and no ID? Do you keep the money? Do you turn in the wallet? Who do you even give it to? On the one hand, let's face it, finders keepers, but what if that $40 belonged to a little kid? Or what if somebody really needed that money to buy food? But then again, if either of those things are true, how would you even find them? And if you just leave the money there, isn't the next person who sees it just going to take it anyway? Or what if you're dating someone, but then you're also texting someone else? I mean, okay, that's not cheating, right? But what if you're texting someone else a lot? Or what if you're texting someone else a lot at, I don't know, like 2 a.m.? At what point does it actually become wrong? See, the reality is that there are times where right and wrong just aren't as cut and dry as we'd like for them to be. And sometimes knowing the right thing to do isn't as simple when you're in the moment, confronted with a real life dilemma. And that's exactly what I'd like for us to talk through today. What do we do when we don't know what's right and what's wrong? Even in situations where we want to do the right thing, figuring out what's right can be complicated. And even if we know what's right, sometimes doing what's right is actually really difficult. So with all that in mind, let's actually pick up where we ended last week with the story of Joseph. And hopefully what we learn from his story today can actually be a game changer for all of us when it comes to knowing what to do when we don't know what to do. So last week, right, we ended with Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers. Not ideal, but don't worry, it gets worse. Remember what we said last week? That when there's nothing you can do, God is with you? Now that's true for us. And as the author of Genesis tells us, that's definitely true for Joseph. You see, Joseph ends up in Egypt working for a guy named Potiphar, who just happened to be a pretty important officer of the Pharaoh. And Potiphar noticed that pretty much everything that Joseph did seemed to work out. So he kept giving him more and more responsibility. So you check out what it says in Genesis 39 verse 4. It says, "So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. And he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had." Yeah, things are looking pretty good for Joseph. At least as good as they can for someone who was, again, sold into slavery by his brothers. Just a little side note, I feel like most of the times that I've heard this story, that detail eventually gets lost. Like somehow Joseph's newfound good fortune in some way overshadows the fact that he's a slave. It doesn't. See, things are better for Joseph, but let's be honest, they are not good. Anyway, like I said, things are looking like they're finally taking a turn for the better for Joseph. That is until we get to verse 7. It says this: "After a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, 'Lie with me.'" Okay. Yikes. On the one hand, it seems like right and wrong are pretty obvious at this point, but there are a few details that we've got to remember. Remember, because Joseph is a slave, he's obligated to do not only what Potiphar says, but also what Potiphar's wife says. And when Potiphar's wife says, "Lie with me," she isn't exactly asking a question. We also need to remember that it's a pretty safe bet that Potiphar doesn't know that his wife is making a pass at Joseph. We also need to remember that if he disobeys Potiphar's wife, there's a really good chance that he could lose his status in the house, or be thrown in jail, or even killed. But if he obeys Potiphar's wife, and Potiphar finds out, then there's an equally good chance that he could lose his status in the house, be thrown in jail, or even killed. Yeah, this is way more complicated than just trying to figure out if sleeping with his owner's wife is wrong or not. So if we keep reading, we find out in verse 8 how Joseph responded. It says, "But he refused." Now, the only problem was that Potiphar's wife was incredibly persistent. Verse 10 actually says, "And she spoke to Joseph day after day. He would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her." All right, so Joseph resisted, even though Potiphar's wife continued to pressure him to do what he knew was wrong. And you see, Joseph, he had integrity. And integrity means doing what's right, regardless of the outcome. It's choosing to do what's right no matter what. Now, okay, I'd love to be able to tell you that this is the end of the story for Joseph and that everything worked out great. Unfortunately, no, that's not the case at all. Instead, actually, things get a lot worse. Potiphar's wife finally gets tired of Joseph's constant rejection, and one day she decides that since he won't obey her, she accuses him of trying to rape her. And suddenly Joseph's life, it goes from bad to worse. Now, Potiphar believes his wife, and Joseph is thrown in jail for a long, long time. And that's the part of the story where we realize that right and wrong aren't always the easiest concepts for us to grasp, let alone act on. You see, Joseph is starting to realize that doing the right thing isn't always easy. And doing the right thing doesn't mean that things are going to suddenly always get better. Sometimes doing the right thing ends up working out, and sometimes it can actually make things a lot worse for us. We don't always know how choosing to do the right thing is going to play out, but having integrity in our decision making, that leaves room for fewer regrets in the long term. And you see, that's really what makes decision making so difficult for us. I think that a lot of time we end up too worried about the outcome and not worried enough about what is actually right. So here's what I'd like to suggest. The next time you find yourself in a situation where right and wrong aren't necessarily so clear, just take a second to pause. And instead of asking yourself what the right thing to do is and how the situation may or may not turn out based on your decision, try instead just to focus on the next right thing. Don't worry so much about the whole situation. Instead, I feel like we all need to commit to doing this. When you don't know what to do the next right thing. Now, will doing that automatically make your life better? No, not necessarily. But if we all commit to doing the next right thing when we're presented with a difficult situation, I can tell you that you, just like Joseph, will be able to say that you acted with integrity. And when you act with integrity, you end up with a lot less opportunity for regret. Now, doing the next right thing doesn't have to be lonely. So I want to encourage you to invite someone else into those decisions with you. In fact, there's strength that shows up when you allow someone else to show up with you. Don't feel like you have to do this all alone. In fact, we want you to know that as you are trying to figure out in any situation what the next right step is, that we are praying for you. And honestly, that we are also trying to figure out what the next right steps are in our lives. So you got to know that this is not something that you are having to tackle all by yourself, and you are not the only person that's trying to figure this out. We want to encourage you, please feel free to reach out. Let us know how we can support you as you are trying to figure out what the next right step is for you. And in the meantime, have a great week, and know that we love you, and we hope to see you all soon.
When you don't know what to do the next right thing. That can be hard because how do you know what the right thing actually is? And this is something that I struggle with. What if I make the wrong decision? What if I go down the wrong path? What if I think the next right thing is actually the next wrong thing? That what if train, it is so easy just to get on. So what do we do with that? How do we get off of it? Growing up, there would be many times I'd be super nervous about a test. And my parents would always say, all you can do is try your best. Like honestly, my parents, they didn't care what the grade was as long as we tried our best. So impact, when we're trying to do the next right thing and we aren't entirely sure what that actually is, try your best. Bring other people into the process, pray about it, and just try your best. That's all anyone can ask. For student ministries, the next right thing for us is to take some time this week just to pause and rest. We've told you this many times that it's important to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So that is exactly what our student ministry staff will be doing this week. We'll be taking just a short break from Tuesday McMillan, the game show, Adulting with Hannah, and Sunday services on July 5th, but we will be back full swing and giving our absolute best on July 6th. We love you, Impact, and hope you have an incredible 4th of July and an awesome week.